The galaxy's strongest armies fell in ours. The Empire demanded Earth's mightiest warrior, and we sent Grandma. How did humanity win a war with cookies and sarcasm? Tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe to see what happened next. Ruth Eleanor McConnell stood in her backyard, scattering feed to chickens that had been dead for 3 years. The real ones, anyway. These days, she just pretended. The motions kept her hands busy, kept the silence from pressing too hard against her skull. "You know what's funny, Margaret?" she said to the fattest imaginary hen. "I got 17 medals in a drawer upstairs. Purple hearts, bronze stars, the works. You know where they are now? Under my old bras and a broken watch." She laughed, but it came out bitter, the kind of laugh that tastes like copper. Her daughter had called yesterday. Again, the same conversation they'd had for 5 years, ever since Ruth's husband died and the world decided she was fragile. "Mom, have you thought about that assisted living place? The one with the nice garden?" Translation: "We think you're losing it. We think you talk to ghosts." Maybe she did. But the ghosts were better company than people who looked at her and saw only a problem to solve. Ruth shuffled back toward the house, her slippers scuffing against dirt that used to be a thriving vegetable garden. Now it was just mud and regret. She'd stopped planting things years ago. What was the point? Everything died eventually. She was reaching for the screen door when she heard it, the sound that didn't belong. A hum, low and mechanical, like a giant tuning fork pressed against the earth. 3 figures materialized in her driveway. Not walked. Materialized. One moment there was nothing but empty gravel. The next there were people in uniforms she didn't recognize, holding glowing tablets that made her eyes hurt. "Ruth Eleanor McConnell?" The tallest one spoke with an accent that pinged around inside her head, like her brain couldn't quite decide what language it was. "Depends on who's asking and whether you're selling something. We're from the Terran Alliance Defense Protocol. You've been selected." Ruth squinted. "Selected for what? I already did my jury duty." The woman consulted her tablet, frowning. "It says here you have extensive combat experience, survival credentials spanning 4 decades, and a psychological profile indicating exceptional resilience under pressure." "It says I'm old and mean, got it." "Ma'am, this is a matter of planetary importance. The Stellar Council has requested Earth's strongest warrior for a diplomatic challenge. Our algorithm identified you as the optimal candidate." Ruth stared at them for a long moment. Then she laughed. Really laughed, the kind that bent her over and made her ribs ache. "Your algorithm is drunk, honey." But nobody knew that in 48 hours, this useless old woman would save 3 planets and accidentally start a cultural revolution. Nobody knew that her greatest battle wasn't behind her. It was waiting in an arena, watched by billions, where an emperor would learn that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just refuses to shut up. "Look," Ruth said, straightening up and wiping her eyes. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm 82. I play bingo on Thursdays. The most dangerous thing I do is eat gas station sushi." The officer checked her tablet again, then showed it to her colleague. They exchanged worried glances. "The departure window is in 30 minutes, ma'am. The council specified we retrieve the candidate immediately. No exceptions." "What if I say no?" "The algorithm doesn't have a no option." Ruth looked back at her house, at the peeling paint and the broken window she'd been meaning to fix for 2 years, at the porch where she'd sat with Tom, back when sitting with someone meant something, at the whole empty, quiet life she'd built out of leftover pieces. "There's coffee where we're going, right?" The officer's expression suggested this wasn't the first weird question she'd gotten today. "I imagine so, ma'am." "Fine. Let me get my robe. And my good slippers. We really don't have time for—" "Son, I lived through the Mars riots, the second Saturn blockade, and 3 teenage children. You can give me 5 minutes to grab my overnight bag." She came back wearing a faded blue bathrobe over her clothes, orthopedic slippers that had seen better decades, and carrying a canvas bag that smelled like oatmeal cookies because it was full of oatmeal cookies. The transport ship was sleek and sterile, all white surfaces and lights that hummed at a frequency that made her teeth ache. Ruth claimed a seat by the window, if you could call it a window. Looked more like a screen pretending to be a window. A young soldier sat across from her, rigid as a flagpole, eyes forward. He had that look, the one that said he'd seen things but hadn't figured out yet that seeing things didn't make you special. It just made you tired. Ruth pulled out a cookie and offered it. "You look constipated, honey. Have some fiber." The soldier's eyes went wide. Thank you, ma'am, but I'm on duty." "Suit yourself. More for me." She took a bite, chewing slowly. "So where are we going? And don't give me the official answer. Give me the real one." The soldier glanced at his commanding officer, who was studiously ignoring them. "The Vorgoth Empire, ma'am. Their emperor challenged Earth to send our strongest warrior. It's some kind of test. If we fail, they'll vote to remove Earth from the Stellar Council." "And they picked me?" Ruth shook her head. "Your computer's got a screw loose." "The algorithm doesn't make mistakes, ma'am." "That's what they said about the navigation system that crashed us into Phobos." The soldier almost smiled. Almost. Ruth settled back into her seat, watching Earth shrink behind them. She thought about calling her daughter, telling her not to worry. But what would she say? "Hi, sweetie. I've been conscripted by aliens for a fight I can't possibly win. Water the plants I don't have." Besides, her daughter wouldn't believe her anyway. Would probably think she'd finally lost it completely. The cookie tasted like memory, oats and brown sugar and the kitchen in their first house. The small one in Cleveland where everything was broken but nothing was wrong. Back when Tom would steal bites of dough and she'd slap his hand and they'd laugh about nothing and everything. She missed laughing with someone who got the joke. The ship hummed, the stars blurred, and Ruth closed her eyes, letting the exhaustion she'd been fighting for years finally catch up. She woke when the deceleration pressed her into her seat. Through the viewport, she saw it. The arena. Massive, beyond comprehension, a floating coliseum that could swallow Earth's moon. Lights blazed from 1,000,000,000,000 surfaces. Cameras, she realized. Every species in the galaxy was watching. "Ma'am?" The soldier was standing, offering his hand. "We've arrived." Ruth took it, letting him help her up. Her knees popped like fireworks. "Tell me something, son. This fight, is it to the death?" The soldier hesitated. That was answer enough. "Thought so." Ruth straightened her robe. "Well, at least I wore my good slippers." The doors opened onto a preparation chamber. Beings of every shape and size rushed around, some humanoid, others decidedly not. One looked like a collection of floating crystals held together by spite. An attendant approached, holding what looked like armor made of liquid metal. "For you, human champion." Ruth looked at it, then at her bathrobe. "Honey, I came dressed for the occasion. This is Ohio formal wear." "But is there coffee? Because if I'm going to die today, I'm doing it caffeinated." Someone laughed. A being with too many eyes and not enough face. The sound rippled through the room, nervous and uncertain. A door opened across the chamber. The light that spilled through wasn't light exactly. It was attention, concentrated and crushing. The weight of billions of eyes, all waiting. And then she heard it. The announcement echoing in 1,000 languages simultaneously, translated by technology she'd never understand. Presenting Earth's champion, Ruth Eleanor McConnell. She took one step forward, then another. The roar hit her like a wave, not cheering, laughing. The door opened fully and she saw the arena, bigger than cities, fuller than oceans. Every seat occupied by beings who had come to watch Earth's finest warrior defend humanity's honor. Ruth Eleanor McConnell, 82 years old, shuffled into the light in her bathrobe and slippers, carrying a bag of cookies and zero expectations. She looked up at the impossible crowd and muttered the only thing that felt appropriate. Shit. The arena wasn't just big. It was a statement. A declaration that some species had figured out how to bend physics over their knee and make it beg. Ruth stood on a platform that floated without visible support, surrounded by a force field that shimmered like heat waves over summer asphalt. Below her, the arena floor stretched out like a vast stage. Above her, a trillion eyes watched through cameras that probably cost more than Earth's GDP. A being approached from the shadows, 8 feet tall, muscles that looked carved from granite, skin the color of gunmetal. Eyes like frozen stars. The Vorgath, she assumed, their emperor. Cathorn stood at the center of the arena, arms crossed, radiating the kind of authority that came from never being questioned. He looked at Ruth the way someone might look at a typo. The holographic translator activated, projecting his voice in rumbling English. "This is Earth's champion?" Ruth shuffled forward, her slippers scuffing against the floating platform. She reached into her bag and pulled out a cookie, extending it toward him. "You look like you need fiber, sweetheart. When's the last time you had a decent bowel movement?" The arena went silent. Not the silence of anticipation, the silence of confusion so profound it became its own kind of noise. Cathorn's eyes narrowed. "You mock me. I'm feeding you. There's a difference." Ruth took a bite of the cookie herself. "Oatmeal. Good for the heart, good for the colon. You're welcome." A ripple moved through the crowd. Laughter, uncertain and scattered. Ruth caught sight of the viewing screens, showing her face in extreme close-up. Every wrinkle, every age spot, broadcast to billions. Cathorn's jaw tightened. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of ceremonial formality. "I am Emperor Cathorn, 7th of his name, unifier of the scattered moons, keeper of the eternal flame. I have challenged your species to prove its worth. The challenge of the soul requires each participant to demonstrate the strength of their spirit. Do you accept?" Ruth finished her cookie and brushed crumbs off her robe. "Kid, I survived 3 teenagers and a government shutdown. You don't scare me." More laughter now, less uncertain. Cathorn's shoulders tensed. Ruth noticed it immediately, the slight hitch, the way he rolled them back like he was trying to release pressure. "You carry stress in your shoulders," she said conversationally. "You're going to throw out your back if you keep that up. I knew a sergeant like you once. Big tough guy, never relaxed. Herniated disc at 43. "Enough." Cathorn's voice cut through the arena. "You will show respect, or you will show defeat. There is no third option." "There's always a third option, honey. It's called have some coffee and talk it out like adults." An attendant approached Cathorn, whispering urgently. The Emperor's expression shifted just slightly, irritation bleeding into confusion. "You request refreshments during a sacred challenge? I request not dying on an empty stomach. You got that universal translator to handle coffee? Or do I need to pantomime it?" Someone in the crowd laughed. Really laughed. A being that looked like an octopus made of light. The sound spread, rippling through sections of the audience. Cathorn raised one massive hand. The laughter stopped. "This is not entertainment. This is judgment. Your species stands trial. You will fight, or you will surrender." Ruth sighed, the kind of sigh that carried 6 decades of dealing with men who thought volume was the same as being right. "Before we start this whole thing, can someone explain what we're actually doing here? Because your people said, 'diplomatic challenge,' and my people apparently can't read." A new figure emerged from the shadows behind Cathorn. Smaller, wearing robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver. Consort Tavor, according to the translator that helpfully provided subtitles in Ruth's field of vision. "The challenge of the soul," Tavor said, his voice like ice scraping against glass, "is sacred to our people. 2 beings enter. Both demonstrate their spirit's strength. The superior survives. The inferior doesn't." Ruth blinked. "You're saying this is a fight to the death?" "I am saying this is a measurement of worthiness. That's a real fancy way to say murder." "We do not murder. We evaluate. Your species claimed strength. The Emperor offers the honor of proving it. Ruth looked at Cawthorn, really looked at him, saw past the muscles and the scowl to the tension in his jaw, the way his hands kept clenching and unclenching. She'd seen that before, in soldiers who'd been given orders they didn't want to follow. "You don't want to do this, do you?" Cawthorn's eyes flashed. "What I want is irrelevant. I am the Emperor. I do what honor demands." Honor's a convenient word when you don't want to admit you're scared. The arena went silent again. But this time it was different. This time it felt like everyone was holding their breath. Cawthorn took a step forward. The platform trembled under his weight. "You know nothing of fear, human." "I know plenty about it, kid. Fear's what you feel in your hands right now. That little tremor you're trying to hide." Ruth pointed at his clenched fists. "I see it. Bet everyone watching sees it too." Cawthorn looked down at his hands. For just a moment, something crossed his face. Not anger. Something softer, something almost human. Then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. "Attendants, prepare the arena. The human has chosen combat." "I haven't chosen anything except caffeine, but sure, let's do this." The floor beneath them shifted. Walls rose from nowhere, creating a circular arena within the larger space. Weapons materialized on racks along the perimeter. Blades that hummed with energy, staffs that crackled with electricity, armor that seemed to be made of captured lightning. Ruth looked at all of it, then sat down on the floor. An attendant rushed over. "Champion, you must choose your weapons." "I choose a chair, a cup of coffee, and that spool of thread I saw in my bag." "Those are not weapons. Everything's a weapon if you're creative enough. The coffee's for moral support." Cawthorn watched her, his expression unreadable. "You mock sacred tradition." "I'm asking for coffee. If that's mocking, your traditions need better hobbies." Tavor leaned close to Cawthorn, whispering urgently. Ruth couldn't hear the words, but she could read body language just fine. The consort was agitated, probably saying something about the crazy human disrespecting their culture. But what Ruth noticed was Cawthorn's face, the way his eyes kept coming back to her, not with contempt, with confusion. Finally, someone brought her a chair. Not a fancy one, just a simple metal seat, and a cup of something that was approximately coffee adjacent. It tasted like burnt regret, but it was hot and caffeinated, which was close enough. Ruth sat, took a sip, and looked up at the Emperor. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere." The arena lights dimmed. Spotlight illuminated the combat circle. A countdown appeared on every screen, ticking down from 60 seconds in a universal numeric system that somehow everyone understood. Cawthorn picked up a spear that crackled with blue energy. He moved to the center of the arena, assuming a combat stance that had probably been refined over centuries. Ruth remained in her chair, sipping terrible coffee. 30 seconds. The crowd's murmur built to a roar. Betting odds flashed across screens. Ruth caught sight of Earth's odds, 10,000 to 1 against. "Generous," she muttered. 20 seconds. Cawthorn's knuckles went white around the spear. 10 seconds. Ruth pulled the spool of thread from her bag, holding it loosely in one hand. 5 seconds. She caught Cawthorn's eyes and smiled, the kind of smile that said, "I know something you don't." The buzzer sounded. Cawthorn charged. Ruth took another sip of coffee and said, "You might want to stretch first, honey. That shoulder's going to seize up on you." The spear stopped inches from her face, trembling. The spear didn't move. Neither did Ruth. Cawthorn's arm trembled with the effort of holding back. The energy weapon hummed, hungry, ready to complete its purpose. All he had to do was push forward. 6 inches. That's all it would take. Ruth took another sip of coffee. "That's what I thought." "What are you doing?" Cawthorn's voice came out strangled. "Sitting, drinking bad coffee, waiting for you to figure out what you actually want." "I want to complete the challenge." "No, you want to look like you're completing the challenge. There's a difference." Ruth set her cup down on the floor beside her chair. "See? I've met men like you before. Big, strong, everyone expects you to be the hammer. But hammers get tired of hitting things, don't they? Cathorn pulled the spear back, stepping away. His breathing was heavy, controlled. The kind of breathing you do when you're trying not to feel something. You understand nothing of my burden. I understand plenty. I raised 3 kids who thought I was supposed to have all the answers. Led soldiers who looked at me like I could stop them from dying. Buried a husband who thought I'd save him from cancer. Ruth's voice stayed level, conversational. You wear a lot of people's expectations like they're armor, but they're just weight, honey. The arena crowd had gone completely silent. Billions watching a fight that wasn't happening. Cathorn circled her slowly, spear still raised but no longer threatening. You should be afraid. I could end you with a thought. You could, but you won't, because ending me doesn't solve your problem. What problem? Ruth gestured at the endless crowd, the cameras, the watching universe. All of them. They expect you to be a certain kind of strong, the kind that breaks things. But what if you're tired of breaking things? What if you want to build something instead? That is not the Vorgath way. The Vorgath way got you standing here with a spear you don't want to use, facing an old woman who just wants decent coffee. Seems like maybe the way needs updating. Cathorn stopped circling. You speak heresy. I speak truth. You folks have a law against that? Movement in the upper viewing box. Tavor was on his feet, gesturing frantically at other robed figures. Even from here, Ruth could see the panic in his body language. This wasn't going according to script. Your consort looks upset, Ruth observed. He's probably the one who really wants this fight, isn't he? Needs you to prove something. Needs the violence to mean something. Tavor serves the Empire with honor. Tavor serves himself. I've met his type too. The ones who hide behind tradition because they're terrified of change. Ruth leaned forward in her chair. But you're not like him. I can see it. You're carrying something else. Something heavier than that spear. Cathorn's eyes flickered. Just for a moment, his guard dropped completely. My father, he said quietly. He built this empire on strength. Conquered 17 systems. Never hesitated, never questioned. He was everything a Vorgath should be. And you're not? I am emperor. I must be what he was. Or what? Ruth stood up slowly, her knees popping. She was so small compared to him. Like a sparrow facing down a hawk. Or people might realize you're not a weapon? That you might actually feel things? Emotions are weakness. The words came out automatic, rehearsed. Emotions are life, kid. Without them, you're just very complicated furniture. A sound rippled through the crowd, not quite laughter, not quite gasping, something in between, the kind of sound that happens when people hear something they've thought but never said. Cathorn lowered the spear completely. I don't understand you. That's because you're trying to. Stop understanding and just listen. Ruth took a step closer. She had to crane her neck to look up at him. You know what real strength is? It's not beating people. It's surviving what you've lost. It's getting up every morning even though everyone you loved is gone. It's standing here offering cookies to someone who could kill you because refusing to be kind would be letting the universe win. The universe doesn't win or lose. It simply is. The universe is a cold, empty bastard that wants you to give up. Every time you choose to keep going, you're giving it the finger. That's what makes us strong. Not muscles, not weapons. The sheer stubborn refusal to quit being human. I am not human. No, but you could learn to be alive. Which is close enough. Cathorn stared at her. His crystal eyes reflected arena lights, making them look wet. This is not how challenges end. Maybe it's time they ended differently. Ruth picked up her coffee cup again. Still terrible. She drank it anyway. You want to know what I lost? My husband, Tom. Cancer. Ate him alive over 3 years. Every day I watched him get smaller. Every day he tried to smile for me. At the end, he weighed 90 pounds and looked like a ghost. But you know what he said? He said, "Ruthie, don't let this make you small. Promise me you'll keep taking up space." Her voice cracked. "Just a little. Just enough. So here I am, taking up space. Refusing to make your life easier by being quiet. That's my strength. That's humanity's strength. We don't know when to quit being inconvenient." Cathorn's spear clattered to the floor. The sound echoed through the silent arena like a gunshot. Tavor was shouting now, his voice amplified across the space. "The Emperor shows weakness. The sacred challenge is violated." Other figures in robes joined him. Senators, Ruth guessed. The ones who needed the violence to continue. Who needed the old ways to stay old. Cathorn picked up his spear, but his hands shook. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "They will not allow this to end peacefully." "I know, honey. I've been waiting for them to make their move." "You knew?" "I've been around long enough to recognize the kind of men who start wars because peace makes them irrelevant." Ruth pulled the spool of thread from her pocket, wrapping it around her fingers. "They're going to try to kill me now, aren't they?" "Yes." "And you're going to have to choose between what they want you to be and what you actually are." Cathorn looked up at Tavor and the senators, then back at Ruth. A muscle worked in his jaw. "I have been emperor for 12 years. In that time, I have conquered worlds, expanded our territory, brought glory to my people. But I have never felt more like a leader than I do right now, standing before an old woman who refuses to fight me." "That's nice, dear. But they're moving. You might want to decide fast." Tavor and 6 senators had entered the arena floor, weapons drawn, energy rifles that glowed with angry light. "She has corrupted the Emperor!" Tavor's voice dripped with righteous fury. "She speaks poison! She dishonors the sacred challenge! This cannot stand!" The rifles raised. Cathorn stepped between Ruth and the weapons. "Stand down," he commanded. "You are compromised?" Tavor said. "The council invokes the right of correction. Step aside, my emperor, and let us cleanse this mistake." "I said stand down." "We cannot. This is for the Empire." Tavor's finger moved to the trigger. Ruth saw it happen in slow motion, saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him decide that murdering her was worth the risk, saw him commit to the violence. She'd seen that look before, in bombed-out field hospitals when triage turned into choosing who lived, in government offices when bean counters decided soldiers were line items, in her daughter's eyes when she suggested the nursing home, the look that said, "You're an acceptable loss." Ruth's hand moved, fast, faster than an 82-year-old woman should be able to move. The needle she'd been palming flew through the air, trailing thread like a comet's tail. It hit the control panel beside Tavor's head, right in the power coupling marked with Vorgath script that her translator helpfully informed her meant critical junction, do not damage. The explosion was small, just enough to overload the arena's force field, just enough to turn their fancy weapons into expensive paperweights, just enough to prove that the old woman in a bathrobe was significantly more dangerous than she looked. Tavor fired anyway. The energy bolt flew wild, arcing up toward the Emperor. Cathorn moved to block it, his body already pivoting. Ruth grabbed his arm and yanked hard. "Down, you idiot!" They hit the floor together as the arena exploded into chaos. Smoke filled the arena. Emergency systems screamed in a dozen different frequencies. Ruth's ears rang with a sound like her skull was full of angry bees. She was on her back, staring up at lights that flickered and died. Something wet and warm pooled beneath her. For a panicked moment, she thought it was her blood. Then Cathorn groaned beside her, and she realized it was his. "Don't move," she commanded, rolling onto her side. Her ribs protested. Something was definitely broken. She'd deal with it later. "Let me see." Cathorn's chest armor had cracked, a spiderweb of damage spreading from a burn mark the size of her fist. Underneath, his gray skin was darker. Blood, she realized. Vorgath blood was purple-black, thick as motor oil. "It's nothing," Kaythorne gasped. "I've had worse." That's what my husband said right before he collapsed in the kitchen. "Shut up and let me work." She ripped open his armor, tearing through material that probably cost more than a house. Underneath, the wound was ugly. The energy bolt had punched through at an angle, missing his heart by maybe an inch, but it had cooked the tissue, cauterizing as it burned. Third-degree burns surrounded entry and exit wounds. Ruth's hands moved on autopilot. 60 years fell away. She wasn't an old woman in a bathrobe anymore. She was Nurse McConnell, trauma specialist, the woman who'd held dying soldiers together with spit and determination. "I need clean cloth, something to pack the wound. And whatever you people use for antibiotics." Around them, chaos reigned. Tavor and his senators were scrambling, trying to restart their weapons. Arena security was pouring in from every entrance. The crowd was in full panic, a tsunami of beings trying to flee. But Ruth ignored all of it. Her world had narrowed to the wound, the breath, the pulse. "You're going into shock," she told Kaythorne. His skin had gone paler, his breathing shallow. "I need you to focus on my voice. Stay with me." "Why?" His voice was weak. "Why save me? I would have killed you." "Would you have? Really?" He tried to laugh. It came out as a wet cough. "No, I don't think I could have." "Then shut up and conserve your energy." She pulled off her bathrobe. Underneath, she wore an old t-shirt with a faded logo for a bar in Cleveland that closed in 2043. She ripped it into strips, wadding them against the wound. The thread. She still had the spool clutched in one hand. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "Everything hurts. Then a little more won't kill you." She threaded the needle by feel, her eyes never leaving the wound. Then she started stitching. Not fancy, not pretty. The kind of field surgery that was more about buying time than saving lives. Kaythorne hissed in pain but didn't pull away. "My father," he said through clenched teeth, "would be ashamed." "Your father sounds like an asshole." That actually made him laugh. He was. But he was also emperor. "I thought I had to be like him. I thought strength meant never doubting, never feeling." "Strength means feeling everything and doing it anyway." Ruth tied off a stitch. "Your father was strong in a galaxy that needed warriors, but maybe you're strong in a different way, the way the galaxy actually needs now." "What way is that?" "The way that stops stupid fights before they start. The way that realizes killing me doesn't prove anything except that you can kill an old woman. Real impressive, champ." More stitches. Her hands were slick with purple-black blood. "I was afraid," Kaythorne admitted. "When you looked at me, when you saw through the armor, I've never been so terrified in my life. Being seen is scary. It's easier to be a title than a person." "Is that why you stayed on that farm, alone, because being seen hurt too much?" Ruth's hands paused, just for a second. "Don't psychoanalyze me while I'm saving your life. It's rude." But he'd hit something true. She had been hiding. Had let her children's worry push her into invisibility. Had decided that being forgotten was safer than being vulnerable. Had chosen the slow death of isolation over the risk of mattering to someone. Again. "I lost everyone I loved," Ruth said quietly. "Easier to stop loving than to keep losing. But you're here. You came. You didn't have to. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You could have hidden in that safe, small life. But you didn't. You took up space. Just like you promised your husband." Damn it. The alien was right. A shadow fell across them. Ruth looked up to see Tavor standing over them, his weapon finally reactivated. His eyes were wild, desperate. "This is your fault," he spat at Ruth. "You corrupted him, made him weak. The Empire cannot survive weakness." "The Empire can't survive you," Ruth said calmly, not stopping her work. "Men like you only know how to break things, and when everything's broken, you call it victory." "I serve the Empire." "You serve yourself. The Empire's just your excuse." Tavor raised the rifle. His hands shook, not with fear, with rage. Cawthorn tried to sit up. Ruth pushed him back down. "Don't you dare ruin my stitches! He's going to kill you!" "Probably, but you're going to live, and you're going to remember that an old human woman thought you were worth saving. Maybe next time someone needs saving, you'll remember that." Tavor's finger tightened on the trigger. Ruth looked up at him, met his eyes, saw the fear there, the desperate need to make the universe make sense again, to put everything back in its proper box. "I forgive you," she said. Tavor hesitated. "What?" "I forgive you. For being scared, for lashing out, for not knowing any better. I've met 1,000 men like you. You're not evil, you're just terrified of change, and I forgive you for that." "I don't want your forgiveness." "Too bad. You're getting it anyway." That's the other thing about humans. We're aggressively compassionate. It's annoying, I know. The rifle wavered. Then Cawthorn's hand shot up faster than his injury should have allowed. He grabbed the barrel and crushed it. The metal crumpled like aluminum foil, sparks flying. "Enough!" Cawthorn commanded. His voice was weak but absolute. "I am still Emperor, and I say enough." Security forces finally reached them, surrounding Tavor and the other senators. Medics rushed in, pushing Ruth aside gently but firmly. She let them. She'd done what she could. Now it was up to fancy alien medicine, and whether Cawthorn was as stubborn as she thought he was. A medic guided her to a stretcher. She wanted to protest, but her body had other ideas. The adrenaline was wearing off. Everything hurt. Her ribs, her hands, her heart. As they lifted her up, she caught Cawthorn's eyes one last time. "Don't waste this," she told him. "Don't go back to being what they want. Be what you are." "What if I don't know what that is?" "Then figure it out. You've got time. I just bought you some." The last thing she saw before exhaustion pulled her under was Cawthorn's hand raising in a gesture that might have been a wave or might have been a promise. Then darkness, soft and final. Except it wasn't final. She woke up 3 days later in a medical bay that looked like it was decorated by someone who'd never met an angle they liked. Everything was curved, organic, alive somehow. A holographic display floated above her bed, showing her vitals in colors she couldn't name. "You're awake," a voice said. Cawthorn stood in the doorway, bandaged but upright. "I was beginning to think you'd sleep forever." Disappointed? Relieved. He stepped into the room, moved carefully but not like someone who was dying. "You saved my life. You saved mine first. We're even." "I don't think that's how it works." "Sure it is. Now we both owe each other. Means we have to stay friends." "Friends." He tested the word like it was foreign. "The Vorgath don't have friends. We have allies, subordinates, enemies." "Well, congratulations. You just got your first friend. It's terrifying and wonderful, and you're going to hate how much you like it." Cawthorn sat down in the chair beside her bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, he said, "Tavor has been exiled. The other senators who supported him have been removed from power. The council is in chaos. Half want to honor you. Half want to pretend this never happened. And you?" "I want to learn how to make cookies." Ruth laughed. It hurt her ribs, but she didn't care. "Then I guess I'll have to stick around long enough to teach you." "I would like that." Outside the window, if you could call it a window, stars wheeled in patterns that seemed almost intentional. Somewhere out there, Earth continued spinning. Her empty farm, her worried children, her quiet, small life. But maybe it didn't have to be small anymore. Maybe taking up space wasn't about being loud or strong. Maybe it was just about refusing to disappear. Ruth spent 2 weeks in the Vorgath medical facility, which was 2 weeks longer than she'd planned on being alive. The doctors, who looked like praying mantises made of mercury, kept running tests she didn't understand to treat injuries she'd been ignoring for years. "Your bone density is concerning," one of them said through a translator that gave him a voice like a disappointed grandfather. "I'm 82. Everything about me is concerning. We could fix much of it. Regenerative therapy, cellular reconstruction. So I can live to be 90 and still alone? No thanks. I'll take my broken bones and my broken life and be grateful I got this far. The doctor's antennae drooped in what might have been sympathy. Cawthorn visited every day. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in silence, which Ruth appreciated more. The man was learning that conversation wasn't always about words. Sometimes it was just about showing up. On the 10th day, he brought a data pad. The Stellar Council has made a decision about Earth. Ruth's stomach tightened. And? They're maintaining your membership, expanding it actually. Earth gets 3 additional seats and voting rights on military actions. He paused. Because of you. Because you proved that humanity's strength isn't just in warfare. It's in endurance, creativity, stubborn, inexplicable compassion. They said all that? I said all that. To them. For 3 hours. Until they agreed to stop being idiots. Ruth smiled. You're learning. I had a good teacher. On the 14th day, the Vorgath High Council summoned her to a ceremony. They wanted to give her medals, titles, honors, the whole diplomatic circus. Ruth attended in a new bathrobe they'd synthesized for her. This one was blue with small embroidered stars. She'd requested the stars. If she was going to be a galactic celebrity, she might as well look the part. The throne room was massive, designed to make visitors feel small. It didn't work on Ruth. She'd been to the DMV. Nothing was more intimidating than that. The High Chancellor, a Vorgath woman who looked like she'd been carved from a glacier, stood at the center of a floating platform. Ruth Eleanor McConnell of Earth, you have performed a service to the Empire and the galaxy. You have shown courage, wisdom, and mercy. We offer you the title of Protector of Life, Guardian of the Living Spirit. You will be honored across all Vorgath worlds. Your name will be remembered in our halls of heroes. Hi. Ruth waited for her to finish. Then she said, Can I get that in a planter instead? Confused silence. I don't need medals. I've got a drawer full of those. They didn't keep me warm, didn't keep me company, didn't make my life matter. Ruth looked around at all the assembled dignitaries. But a garden? Something living? Something I can tend and watch grow? That'd be useful. The Chancellor blinked, which was unsettling because she had about 6 eyelids. You refuse honors? I refuse useless honors. Give me something I can actually use or give it to someone else. More silence. Then Cawthorn laughed. Actually laughed, the sound booming through the chamber. Give her the eternal garden of the 7th moon, he said. The one that grows plants from every world in the Empire. And modify it for Earth's climate. The Chancellor looked like she wanted to argue, but knew better. As the Emperor commands. 3 days later, Ruth stood in the cargo bay of a transport ship, looking at the most elaborate planter box she'd ever seen. It was the size of a small car, filled with soil that shimmered like it had stars mixed in. The plants inside were already growing, their leaves colors that didn't exist in nature, at least not in Earth's nature. The purple ones are from Vorgath Prime, Cawthorn explained. They bloom once a year and smell like what you humans call cinnamon. The silver ones are from the ice moons. They sing when the wind hits them right. And these, he pointed to a small cluster of normal-looking plants, are coffee plants, engineered to grow in Ohio's climate. I thought you might appreciate that. Ruth touched the coffee plants gently. The leaves were soft, alive, real. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank you for showing me that strength doesn't have to destroy. That power can build instead of break. Cawthorn handed her a small device. This is a communicator, direct line to me. If you ever need anything, if Earth ever needs anything, you call. You sure you want to give that kind of access to an old woman who doesn't know when to shut up? I'm counting on it. The transport delivered her directly to her farm in Ohio. She half expected her children to be waiting, worried and angry. But there was only a note on the door. Mom, we saw the news. The whole galaxy saw the news. We're sorry we didn't listen. We're sorry we tried to make you small. Come to dinner next Sunday? We want to hear everything. Love, Sarah. Ruth stood on her porch, holding the note, and cried for the first time in 6 years. Not sad tears, not happy tears, just tears. The kind that means something shifted in your chest and let the pressure out. She planted the garden in her backyard, right where Tom's vegetable patch used to be. The alien plants looked ridiculous next to her weathered barn and broken fence, like someone had dropped a piece of future into the past. But they grew, and they were beautiful. News crews tried to visit. She sent them away. Celebrity didn't interest her. She'd done what she did because it needed doing, not because she wanted attention. But word spread anyway. The story of Grandma Ruth, the woman who stopped a war with cookies and courage. Children's books were written. Songs were composed. Somewhere, a playwright was probably working on a dramatic adaptation. Ruth ignored all of it. She tended her garden, played bingo on Thursdays, and video called her grandchildren, who suddenly thought she was the coolest person alive. 6 months after her return, the Stellar Council made an announcement. A new protocol for first contact situations. A new approach to diplomatic challenges. They called it the Protocol Ruth. Assess before acting. Talk before shooting. Remember that every species has value beyond violence. Strength comes in forms we might not recognize. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to fight. Ruth watched the announcement on her old television, sitting in her kitchen with coffee that was still terrible, but at least was hot. Cawthorn appeared on the screen giving the speech to the assembled council. He looked different, more relaxed, like someone had untied a knot he'd been carrying in his spine. "My father taught me that power grows from the barrel of a weapon," Cawthorn said. "But Ruth Eleanor McConnell taught me that power grows from refusing to use one. She faced death and offered cookies. She faced an empire and offered friendship. And in doing so, she changed everything." The camera cut to Earth's representatives, who looked proud and slightly confused. They still didn't quite understand how an 82-year-old woman had accidentally become humanity's greatest diplomat. Ruth's communicator buzzed. She picked it up. "Did you watch?" Cawthorn's voice. "I watched. You did good, kid. I've been working on something. A project. Want to see?" The communicator screen shifted, showing Cawthorn's kitchen, or what passed for a kitchen on a Vorgath Imperial vessel. He held up a tray of something that was technically cookies, but looked like they'd survived a small war. They were burnt, badly. The kind of burnt that suggested the smoke alarm had given up and filed for retirement. Ruth laughed until her sides hurt. "What did you do to them?" "I followed your recipe exactly." "Did you remember to set a timer?" Silence. Cawthorn. "Time is relative in space. I may have gotten distracted with a trade negotiation." "You burned cookies during a trade negotiation?" "In my defense, the negotiation went very well. We avoided a war." By burning baked goods?" The other side was so concerned about the smoke that they forgot to be angry. It was actually quite effective. Ruth shook her head, still smiling. "Next time I'm up there, I'm teaching you properly. Can't have the Emperor of the Vorgath Empire poisoning diplomats with bad cookies." "Next time?" His voice carried hope. "Well, someone's got to make sure you don't burn down the galaxy. Might as well be me." They talked for another hour, about nothing important. About everything important. About the small things that make life worth living even when life is hard. When they finally said goodbye, Ruth sat on her porch and looked up at the stars. Tom used to sit here with her, pointing out constellations, making up stories about the aliens that might be watching back. He'd have loved this. Would have laughed himself sick at the idea of his Ruthie, the practical one, the sensible one, becoming a galactic hero with cookies and sass. "I kept my promise," she told the stars, told Tom, told herself. "I took up space. I didn't let them make me small, and I'm not done yet." A ship streaked across the sky. Maybe a cargo vessel, maybe a warship, maybe just someone going home. Ruth raised her coffee mug in salute. The galaxy was big and strange, and full of beings who thought strength meant violence. But slowly, one conversation at a time, one burned cookie at a time, that was changing. Because Ruth Eleanor McConnell had shown them something they'd forgotten or never known, that the most human thing you can do, the thing that makes you truly strong, is to keep showing up. Keep being kind. Keep offering cookies to people who threaten you. Keep taking up space even when the universe wants you to disappear. Keep living loudly in a galaxy that prefers silence. Her communicator buzzed again. A message from Sarah, her daughter. "Mom, the kids want to hear about the time you defeated an alien emperor with embroidery. Can we come over?" Ruth typed back, "Bring dessert. I'll put on coffee. The good stuff this time." She looked at her garden, at the alien plants glowing softly in the twilight. At her old house, at her quiet life that was suddenly very loud. And for the first time in years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace, hope, purpose. The universe tried to make her small. She refused. And in refusing, she changed everything. Somewhere in the Vorgath Empire, a young soldier looked at the new protocols and thought, maybe there's another way. Somewhere on Earth, a child read about Grandma Ruth and thought, maybe I don't have to be loud to be brave. Somewhere in the space between stars, beings who'd only known violence started wondering what cookies tasted like. One old woman, one impossible choice, one stubborn refusal to disappear. That's all it took to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in how hard we could hit. It was in how hard we could love, how stubbornly we could hope, how defiantly we could choose kindness in a universe that offered every excuse not to. Ruth Eleanor McConnell, 82 years old, veteran, nurse, grandmother, champion. She'd gone to the stars expecting to die. Instead, she taught them how to live. And that, in the end, was the most human thing of all. Maybe that's the trick of being human in a galaxy that doesn't quite get us. We don't conquer by winning. We conquer by caring louder than anyone thought possible. Grandma Ruth didn't teach an empire how to fight. She taught them how to stop. And maybe that's the real rebellion. Kindness, even when the universe gives you every reason not to bother. So, what does strength look like to you? Is it the roar of a victory, or the quiet refusal to hate? When was the last time you chose compassion over pride and realized that's what made you unbreakable? And if the universe handed you the microphone, would you use it to shout or to listen? If you made it this far, write the word cookies in the comments, because that's what started the peace treaty of the century. Tell us where on Earth or which galaxy you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you believe humanity's greatest weapon is humor. Drop a like if you'd share oatmeal cookies with an alien emperor. And share this story so someone out there remembers, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just keep showing up. Now go watch the next story in the card, before Ruth finds out you left without finishing your coffee.